First lesson guys is all about notes and rest and its time values. So, ang notes ay nagre-represent ng sounds sa music. Ang rest naman ay kabaliktaran. It represents silence in music. So, ngayon, unahin natin yung notes. First note is whole note. Whole note has the longest time value sa lahat ng mga nota. It receives 4 beats. So we have 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So, ganun katagal ang 4 beats ng isang full note. So, ngayon guys, unti-unti natin buuin ang note rhythm tree para mas maintindihan natin ang time values ng bawat nota. Second note is half note. Half note receives 2 beats. So, kung mapapansin natin guys, nag-iba na yung itsura ng half note. So, may circle siya, tapos may stem. Yung circle ay tinatawag nating head. Okay? So, we have the head and the stem. Yung whole note kanina ay head lang siya, walang stem. So, kung 2 beats ang isang half note, so, ibig sabihin sa isang whole note, meron tayong dalawang half note. We have 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay? So, ganun katagal ang time values ng half note. Okay, check natin yung ating note rhythm tree. Sa isang whole note, may dalawang half note. Next note is quarter note. The quarter note receives 1 beat. So, ang head ng quarter note is shaded na. Then, may stem pa rin. So, yun ang pagkakaiba ng quarter note sa half note. Sa half note, hindi shaded yung head. Sa quarter note, shaded na yung head. So, kung 1 beat ang quarter note, so sa isang half note, meron tayong dalawang quarter notes. Then, sa isang whole note, meron tayong 4 na quarter note. 1, 2, 3, 4. I-check natin sa ating note rhythm tree. Yan. Now, let's proceed to our next note. That note is 8 note. 8 note receives 1/2 beat. Shaded yung kanyang head. May stem. Then, meron na tayo tinatawag na flag. Yung iba, yan ay tinatawag na hook. So, kung 1/2 ang value ng ating 8 note, ibig sabihin sa isang quarter note, meron tayong dalawang 8 note. Now, check our note rhythm tree. Naintindihan po ba? And our last note is 16th note. 16th note receives 1/4 beat. So, 1/4 guys, mabilis yan. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, kung 1/4 yan, na isang 8 note, meron tayong dalawang 16th note. Okay, so ang itsura niya, yung head shaded, may stem, then ang ating flag ay dalawa na, or hook, dalawa na siya. Now, check natin guys ang ating note rhythm tree. So, yan guys. Yan ang ating structure.
Dotted notes. So, ang value ng dot ay kalahati ng value ng notang nasa unahan niya.
Next guys ay ang rest o sa Tagalog ay pahinga. It represents silence in music, walang tunog. So, unahin natin ang ating whole rest. The whole rest receives 4 beats. Katulad lang din ng ating whole note, 4 beats. Ang pagkakaiba lang guys ay walang tunog sa whole rest. Okay, example. So, silent tayo ng 4 counts. Okay, now, buuin natin yung ating rest rhythm tree. So, yan guys. Nasa tuktok ang ating whole rest. Next is half rest. It receives 2 beats. So, ibig sabihin, sa isang whole rest, meron tayong dalawang half rest. Okay, yung example. So, 2 counts tayong walang tunog. Okay? Check na lang natin yung ating rest rhythm tree. Okay, para maintindihan natin. Okay. Next rest is quarter rest. The quarter rest receives 1 beat. So sa isang half rest, meron tayong dalawang quarter rest. So check natin ang ating rest, rhythm 3. So yan guys. Second to the last rest is 8th rest. 8th rest receives 1/2 beat. So ibig sabihin, sa isang quarter rest, may dalawang 8th rest. So i-check natin guys ang ating rest, rhythm 3. So kitang-kita din ang value ng bawat rest na dinidiscuss natin ngayon. And the last rest ay ang ating 16th rest. The 16th rest receives 1/4 beats, katulad lang din ng 16th note. Pagkakaiba, again, ang rest walang tunog, ang notes may tunog. Okay? So, check natin ang ating rest, rhythm 3. Yan. So, yun yung tungkol sa notes and rest and their time values, guys. Kaya, nagka-map tayo ng ganitong chart, no? Sa first column, meron tayong notes, no, the rest, the names, and their values. Now, meron akong pa-assignment sa inyo, no? Nasasagutan ninyo sa pamamagitan ng pag-comment sa baba. I-comment nyo yung sagot nyo, no? Pwedeng sumagot dito ang teachers, parents, or kahit na sino, mga bata, kung gusto nyo complete yung sumagot. Okay, question. Dito sa chord chart na ito, di ba may values, yung mga tinuro ko kanina. Yung number of beats ba doon ay permanent value ng mga notes or rest?
When counting the rhythms, it is very important that you know the note values. If this is something that you are not familiar with, make sure to check the video that I created on note values first. It can be found in the description below. Remember that rhythms are created with both notes and rests. A whole note and a whole rest have 4 beats. Therefore, when counting a whole note, we use 4 numbers like in this example. To show that we hold and sing or play throughout all 4 counts, we use a hyphen between the numbers. Here's an example of a whole note. The same goes for a whole rest, but we also add the parentheses around the numbers to show that we are silent for 4 counts. A half note and half rest have 2 beats. Therefore, when counting a half note, we use 2 numbers. If the note starts on the first beat of the measure, we use numbers 1 and 2. If it starts on the second beat, we use 2 and 3, and if it starts on the third beat, we use 3 and 4. Remember to use a hyphen between the numbers to show that a note is longer than 1 beat. Here is an example of 2 half notes. The same goes for a half rest. Do you remember what we used to show that we are counting a rest? You're correct. Parentheses around the number. A quarter note and quarter rest have 1 beat. Therefore, when counting a quarter note, we use 1 number. We will use the number based on which beat in the measure the quarter note starts. Here is an example of 4 quarter notes. A quarter rest will have the same way of counting, but we will again add parentheses to show that we are counting a rest. Before we start writing our counting in music, we need to understand our time signature. The time signature tells us how many beats there are in a measure. When we know how many beats there are in a measure and understand our note values, we can start counting. Remember that our top number in time signature tells us how many beats we receive per measure. The bottom number tells us which note counts as a beat. Let's now look at some examples. Our first example uses a 4/4 time signature, which indicates that there are 4 beats in the measure. We will use numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 to write in the counts. The rhythm starts with a whole note, so we write in 1-2-3-4. A second measure starts with a half rest and then continues with a half note. Therefore, we write 1-2 in parentheses and then 3-4. We then continue to the third measure with quarter notes and a quarter rest. We write 1, 2 in parentheses, 3, 4. The last measure we start with 1 in parentheses, as we have a quarter rest, then 2-3, 4. This is what this rhythm sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's try to clap it together. Don't forget to count out loud when you're doing this. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice that every new measure starts with number 1. If you ever get any different number right after the bar line, then something went wrong along the way. Let's now look into an example with 3/4 time signature. How many beats will we have in each measure this time? You're right, 3. And therefore, we will use numbers 1, 2, and 3 to add the counts. Before I give you an answer, pause this video and try to add the counts on your own. Remember to always start a new measure with number 1. Here's the answer. Not too difficult, right? Now I will clap this rhythm for you and you can listen to what it sounds like. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Let's now clap this rhythm together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now that we know how to clap and count this rhythm, let's sing it together. Remember to keep on counting silently in your head as you do this. Here's the pitch. Do, 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 do. Next are the eighth notes. An eighth note and an eighth rest are 1/2 a beat long. Eighth notes often come in pairs. The two notes can be either single or beamed eighth notes. Two eighth notes together equal 1 beat. Do you remember which note value has 1 beat? You're right, it's a quarter note. This means that if we add up two eighth notes together, they equal 1 beat or 1 quarter note. To count these eighth notes, we can only use one number because they equal 1 beat. We notice that we have two note heads, so what we do is add a number for the first note and the symbol for the second one. That symbol is a plus, and when we say it, we will say and. 1 and, 2 and, 3 and, 4 and. Let's look at some rhythmic examples that include eighth notes. We have 4 beats in the measure, so we are using 4 numbers to count this rhythm. 1, 2-3, 4 and. 1 in parentheses, 2, 3 and 4. 1 and 2, 3 and 4. 1-2, 3 and 4. Clapping will sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3 and 4. 1 and 2, 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Let's try it together. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3 and 4. 1 and 2, 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Let's now add eighth rest to our eighth notes. The procedure is exactly the same, but we will now need to add parentheses to the number or a symbol with a rest. The trick will be to make sure that you don't clap on any of the 8 rests, especially if they appear on the downbeat. Therefore, I recommend to add a dot or a line underneath the counts for single 8 notes like I did in the following example. Let's go slowly from one measure to the next one. The first measure will look like this: 1, 2, -3, 4, end. The second measure, 1 in parentheses, 2, 3, and in parentheses for the 8th rest, 4. The third measure, 1, and in parentheses, 2, and in parentheses, 3 in parentheses, and 4 in parentheses, and. The last 4th measure will look like this: 1, and in parentheses, 2, 3 in parentheses, and 4. I will now clap this very slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4. Let's try this together. Ready? One, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4. Good work! Now you know how to count rhythms with whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, and eighth notes, and all the corresponding rests. Don't forget about the basic rules when counting your rhythms. Number 1. Always check the time signature before you start counting. Number 2. If a note is 1 beat long, we use one number to count it. Number 3. When counting notes that are longer than 1 beat, we use a hyphen between the numbers to indicate that the note is sung or played longer than 1 beat. Number 4. When we are counting rests, we use parentheses around the numbers which show that we are still counting the beat, but we are silent. Number 5. Write the counts underneath the rests and notes very precisely. Number 6. Always start a new measure with number 1. And number 7. When clapping your rhythms, always count the rhythm out loud. It's not that difficult, right? Now take a simple rhythm that you might have been practicing lately and see if you can add all these counts to it.